I'm Matt Cerrone from MetsBlog.com, here with Ted Berg from SNY.TV, and we were originally going to talk about Willie Randolph, but frankly, I'm exhausted and tired of talking about Willie, talking about people being fired.
And Matt, I'm tired of hearing people talk about people being fired.
Exactly. So instead, let's sort of turn the page here and look at where this team's headed. And Jerry Manuel, they brought in. I thought he was excellent in the press conference, seemed like a pretty cool guy, but I don't really know much about him. I know you wrote an article for SNY.TV, so fill me in.
Well, I looked back at his tenure with the White Sox, which of course didn't end well, as so many managerial tenures don't. But the word that kept coming up, the thing people kept talking about was his courage. And I think that's a great thing for the Mets, especially with all the paranoia surrounding the end of the Willie Randolph era here. It's great for the Mets to have a confident manager. And I think the first time we really saw that was yesterday, the way Jose Reyes got hurt in the first inning. Manuel wanted to take him out. He knew, I don't want to lose my shortstop for the future. A hamstring thing is something I act up. Reyes didn't want to come out, and Manuel stuck with his guns and pulled him out and then communicated with him, and I think that's so many different great signs in there.
Sure, and speaking of communication, too, one of the things I enjoyed reading from last night was David Wright wanted to play. Manuel said, "You're going to be the DH." Wright went into his office, sort of begged him to let me play the field, and Manuel said, "No, you're the DH. That's the decision, live with it." And, I think that's always a good sign when they sort of hold that line.
And it was great to see the players respond, because it acted as though they really showed a little respect for their manager, which is nice to see, especially on a team that's had, all these rumors of communication breakdowns. Now, tell me, I don't know too much about Dan Warthen, the new pitching coach, but I understand you've done a little research.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a few people down there, also from the Norfolk Tides, too, and as the organization goes, people speak very highly of him. It seems like he's a total 180-degree turn from Rick Peterson.
Do you think that's going to mean he's going to break Victor Zambrano in 10 minutes?
I hope so.
Victor Zambrano took care of that himself, I think.
Pretty much. But, he's the kind of guy that's going to approach each pitcher differently, try to tap into each one of their strengths, as opposed to Peterson, who would bring this sort of master philosophy and expect people to sort of fit into it, which I think is probably a good approach right at the moment. I think you've got guys that need to be harnessed that way, so that's good. And then Oberkfell, who they also brought in, is spoken about very highly. He was a scrappy player. I think he brings that old school kind of rough, gruff style, but people talk about him in a way that suggests, he knows how to relate to some of these current generation of players. He matured as a manager in the minor leagues, got to know a lot of these guys, and so he brings that old school flavor into this sort of new school environment, which I think is good.
Well, I guess only time will tell how it plays out.
Yeah, and I hope it plays out well, to say the least. Matt Cerrone from MetsBlog.com, Ted Berg from SNY.TV. Thanks.